Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott, and we're finishing off the week with some guru time. Yes, the guru, Ronald Murphy, is here to talk all sorts of monsters and legends. We're going to have some fun with him, but first we must say hello to each and every one of you. We have Kitty Cattywhack in the gold medal position. Race fan with a silver T-bone. Taking home the bronze medal tonight. Here we say hello to Race Fan, and we say hello to Robert Lamoth. And Mel WD-40 is here lubing us up for tonight's show, because literally the guru says, Dave, I'm not coming on unless Mel lubes me up to talk some monsters. So Mel is lubing up the guru as we speak. Crystal Cat and Road Flare, how are you tonight? Lightwalkers is here. Lightwalkers will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Stephanie Kenny Blankenship, how are you? As we say hello to Amy Allo and the lovely and talented Deanna Ann. Thank you for joining us. Snow Baby, how are you tonight? Missouri Man, Shane Gord, nice to have you both here. And let's see here. Let's scroll on down a little bit. Kathy Evans, nice to have you here. Flubber Lane is here. Flubber Lane will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Undead Jed, Aussie Boss Tiger, nice to have you here. Hi, Lisa Smith, how are you? Stargazer and Debbie Nickerson. Little Debbie's here, and she's hanging on out with us. Moving on down, we say hello to JSCO. And we say hello to Pam Harris. Jay Truth, how are you? Brandon Hallberg, thanks for coming on in. Tim Mothman and his goatee are here. Two separate entities. You must address them in two different ways. Jerence Carter. Jerence, how you doing tonight? As we scroll on down, I am so tired today. Holy cow. Integrationing and Phil Funk, nice to see you both here. And Invisible Tracker, how you doing? Scrolling on down. Eric Frey, welcome to SOR Chat. Scrolling on down. Are we really caught up already? Walter Kochubinski. Everybody's watching the Oilers game right now. That's why. We started the third period yet? No, we're still in intermission. Darn it. Darn it. Darn it. What else is here? Let's take a look. One sec. Let me just take a sip of water. I've been battling a stomach ache all day, and then after dinner, I kind of pigged out on some ice cream, and now I feel just like, gross again. Tyler 420, how are you? And we have to recall, if you recall, CaribouCon tickets are on sale right now. September 18th through 20th at cariboucon.com. Make sure you go get them. It'll be fun. Gear Jammers, how you doing? Para Marv, how you doing? And Dave had a new camera angle tonight. No, it's the same camera angle. Same camera angle. Noble Patrick, how are you? Pam Harris, thank you for kicking off the super chat tonight. The super chat is a lovely way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Be like Pam, everybody. Be like Pam. Here we go. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side tonight. My name is Dave Scott as we get ready for the crypto guru. Ronald Murphy is here. Yeah, he is here. He's in the building waiting for us. And of course, it's going to make me stand up. Can't do a show with Guru without putting my hat on. There we go. And of course, it's going to make my is it me? Oh, it's my camera. I hate that Zoom stuff. I really do. No, we're still blurry too. Son of a gun. Come on, you can do it. It's a little bit more. A little bit more. A little bit more. A little bit more. Oh
well. Are you ready to hear your mystic voice of the night?
It's time to wake up.
He's here. Shush. Be quiet. He's ready for you to listen. Let's point our ears towards the little cabin in the woods. We're together, my friends. It's time for Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott.
From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot. Read the news wire. Check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by CaribouCon. Join us September 18th through 20th in the beautiful region of Caribou, British Columbia for CaribouCon #1. It's going to be a great show tonight. It's been a while since we had the crypto guru on, but Ronald Murphy is going to join us to talk all sorts of monsters. Then in hour #3, Swamp Dweller will join us for a spooky story. We will follow that up with Lee Strauss, the extra small one for the Q&A. The crypto guru, Ronald Murphy, has been investigating this stuff of nightmares for over 30 years. He has investigated the things that go bump in the night and meticulously researched the historical and psychological context of myths and legends from around the world. The guru seeks to uncover the archetypal precedent for the monsters that haunt our collective thoughts. And his website, ronaldlmurphy.com. It used to be the crypto guru. Did I get that right? What is your website?
No. My email, my website is ron-cryptoguru.com.
Well, there you go. ron-cryptoguru.com. Why not just hear it from the horse's mouth? So that's what we have been doing. How you doing, Guru?
I'm doing well, my friend. So I've been watching your show. I haven't been on it, though, for a long time. It seems like it's been forever, but I'm glad I'm here right now talking to you guys.
For everybody who may be hearing you for the first time, how did this beautiful journey into the mysterious begin?
Really in my childhood. My mother was a fan of all things paranormal, whether it be ghosts or Bigfoot or UFOs. And I just was brought up that way. I mean, it was a great time to be alive. It was a great bonding experience with my mom. We would watch shows like That's Incredible and, In Search Of. And then we would go down to our local library. This is before the internet. So we would go down to our local library and we would get books out on Bigfoot. And it was just a great time to be a kid. But the cool thing about it is, as I grew older, I still had that same outlook in life, that there was something out there beyond our knowledge, that there was things out there that were still hidden. And it sort of it enamored in me a bit of reverence for the world around us, because in order for us to have monsters, we also have to have wild places. So I see monsters as something that is not so frightful. It's just simply they're reminding us that there's things out there that we simply do not completely comprehend and understand. Now, what happens a little bit later down the line? My goodness, my friend, this must be going back, I'm going to say 15 years, but it might be longer. But I'm thinking somewhere right around 15 years, I wrote a book called The Unexplained World of the Chestnut Ridge, and that was the first book on the unexplained that I wrote. It covered cryptids and UFO sightings and all kinds of strange happenings around this part of my the world in Western Pennsylvania, where I live. And you were the first show to have me on, and that was, like I said, that was an incredibly long period of time ago. I was the first time I was a guest on the show to talk about my book was good old Spaced Out Radio, and then you gave me the nickname Crypto Guru. So it really has been my journey through this world of the unexplained. I've been sharing with you the entire way. Every time I've written a new book, you've been very nice enough to have me on and to discuss it. And so we're in this together. We're kind of brothers at arms, if you will.
That is very true. And love calling you the guru. And you know what? Our fans have always loved having you on because you're just so eloquent when you talk about these subjects. You've really embraced the love of these subjects, haven't you?
I have, and I think the best way to describe it, and that is actually in your words, is that I have a bit of I see it as very romantic, right? Not in the whole love relationship kind of way, but there's definitely a romance to it. That there's this underlying meaning to all of it that really hits us on an emotional level, and that's really the way that I see these things. I mean, I think that we as human beings have monsters embroidered into our DNA, and it's something that we can talk about later. But one of the things that I'm researching right now is the theory of the uncanny valley, which has been proposed a few years ago regarding technology like AI and robotics. But I think you can definitely relate it to the world of the paranormal as well too. But I think that we have been around this world and we've shared this planet with things that are called, monsters now, mysteries now. But, in our ancient past, I think that we interacted with creatures that now have become the stuff of legends. And we carry that. We carry these cultural memories with us. So if you look around the world, almost all cultures have an archetypical character that satisfies, the werewolf and the wild man and vampires. So we have this going for us. We as human beings in the 21st century, we have still within our collective unconscious this idea that monsters exist. And that really makes us human. Without these monsters, we lose a bit of our humanity. So of course they're very endearing to me as well too, because they inspire within me a bit of creativity, and I'll always have that curiosity about things that go bump in the night.
Here's the thing about monsters though, man. A lot of people who have never seen a Bigfoot or anything, we know those people. They're suburban people. They're people who live in metropolises, who think of forest as a group of 6 trees in their local park. Okay. And yeah, I throw that same sarcasm back at them when it comes to that. But for you looking at these subjects, okay, how do you tell them that this isn't just about going to bed and having nightmares or daydreams or maybe you watched a scary movie and that's going to affect what you're seeing at night with UFOs or shadow people in your bedroom.
Yeah, that's a great point. And what you said is absolutely correct. So we live in a world that we control as human beings. We have electricity. We no longer work on any kind of diurnal clock. We can have electricity on all night long, so we don't have to worry about when we go to bed and when we get up. And we also have put walls up, which is a very unique thing, right? Because if you look, even 150 years ago, we were mostly still a very agricultural society. And it's only after these industrial revolutions that came by that we are now allowed to work, within businesses. Then we put up walls and we live in houses. So pretty soon, the world in which we depended upon, the land in which we worked, and the stars by which we told what season it was going to be, all that stuff become very archaic and relegated to superstition. So now we live in a world that we control. Now, what happens is there is still a bit of reality out there that is beyond our control. And we're not talking about the state park or anything. We're talking about real wilderness, and I don't think a lot of people can comprehend that. But we as human beings are the apex of creation in our world. But if you put us out onto the ocean, you throw us into a jungle, you put us into the desert or swamp or anything like that, we are no longer the apex creation at that point. We are now in survival mode, and there are things out there that can, to really show us who we are, right? So in a world that we control, we are the masters of our domain. But anything outside of that, anything in that world in which we left behind, once we enter it again, that world from which we came from, and that world what we're meant to be a part of, has now become so foreign to us that it's now dangerous. And anything that is dangerous and anything that has any kind of foreboding to it, we tend to mythologize it, and also we tend to personify it into something that's more tangible and more understandable. And all that being said, I think that is where a lot of these kind of legends arise from as well. Now, of course, this would be a boring talk just to talk about the psychology and the folklore of monster making, because I've spoken to a lot of people and I've had a lot of anecdotal things happening. I've never seen Bigfoot, but I've had a lot of anecdotal things happen that suggest that there is something out there that I've been searching for ever since I've been a little kid. And that's something that I'm searching for, is this unknown creature that inhabits those wilderness areas that we are not accustomed to going into. And whenever people enter that area, whenever people leave our world and venture into the world of the other, that's whenever we experience these things we just simply cannot understand. And I think one of the reasons why that is because we put the veil over our eyes, and we don't want to admit that there's things out there because we have not categorized them. And we like to nail things down, and we like to eviscerate things, and we like to see what makes things tick, because we as humans like to fool around with that kind of stuff, But whenever you say that there's something out there that's hidden, something that looks akin to us, it's bipedal, it's obviously intelligent, that makes us uneasy. And at that point, this uneasiness translates into that it must be a monster because we simply don't understand it. But whenever I do research here in Western Pennsylvania, so I'm about 35 miles away from Pittsburgh. I'm not too far from Pittsburgh at all. But we are in a pretty wooded area. We have the Chestnut Ridge here, which is not what you would call wilderness. I mean, it's a landscape for sure. It's a geographical landscape that's very prominent in our area, and it has woods in it, but it's not like old growth woods or anything. Probably the trees at most are maybe 80 years old at the most. So we're not talking about huge trees like you have in the Pacific Northwest. But you still have a bit of wilderness there. And it's in that wilderness that people think there's Bigfoot. There's, Black Panthers we have in this area. People also say that UFOs frequent this region as well, too. And it's because we're going into a world that even a world like that, which is partially domesticated, it's still so foreign to us and still very wild to us. There's a lot of Thunderbird sightings in my area as well too. And I remember there was a recent show on television. I wasn't part of it, but they interviewed a gentleman that was coming over the Chestnut Ridge, and he was driving a truck, and he claimed that he saw a bird with a 90-foot wingspan. Now, yeah, that's a huge bird. So, are we to say that that person is lying? Because I don't think he was lying. I don't think he was fabricating anything to become, to be on TV. I think that he saw something that he could not understand. But then again, a lot of people who come into this region see things from turkey vultures to, wild turkeys themselves and bald eagles. And these are immense birds, and their minds simply cannot grasp it. So they start filling in all these blanks. I've seen a lot of bald eagles in my area, and their wingspans are probably around 8 feet, something like that. So it is a massive bird, but not to the point that it's 90 feet. But I think that we tend to overestimate things like that because we want to make them even more monstrous, because we're entering into a world that we simply do not understand.
Where are these creatures? Like, if you look at the Thunderbird, where are they?
Exactly.
Why can't you see them? Because if they were flying around, and I've used this example many a times, and I love this subject about Thunderbirds because I want to believe, and we're not talking about the United States Air Force Thunderbirds here. We're talking about giant birds from times of when First Nations have seen them going back millennia.
Yep, that's my problem as well too, because an 80-foot wingspan is out of the question. But let's go down to even a 20-foot wingspan, something twice the size of a bald eagle. Okay, this is still a massive animal, but they have to do bird things like fly around, and birds also tend to they tend to do their business as well too. And I've never had anybody report to me that a bird with a 20-foot wingspan, took a dump on their car and broke their window, or nobody has ever been outside and discovered a 15-foot pin feather either. Nobody is coming back with any kind of evidence. And that is absolutely the point, that what you made is absolutely salient. These are the things that we have to talk about. But let's then look at the Native American and the First Nation, their understanding of these creatures. They even appear on totem poles. This is part of their culture.
Guru.
So yes,
a bird that say is 40 feet long, or has a 40-foot wingspan, or like the example you gave, the guy believed it had about a 90-foot wingspan, which is almost the wingspan of a B-52 bomber. Okay. That's going to appear on radar.
Absolutely. And I brought that up as well too. So whenever I was writing my Chestnut Ridge book, I actually visited the local airport. We have a very small little airport. It's a hub for Spirit Airlines. It only flies right now to Myrtle Beach, I think. But I went to the airport there, and I brought up this very question: do you ever see things on the radar? And the answer was yes. So they pointed out to me on the radar things that were flying, but they did not have any code related to them. And the gentleman told me that this is usually related to either military or some sort of police activity, where there is something up there flying around, but it doesn't want to be identified, which is completely understandable. Now, there are some cases to be made. I'm not one of these people, but there are people that suggest that this is a conspiracy, that the government knows about these things, and they have been assigned this kind of blank signature whenever they are up there on radar. I don't buy that whatsoever, because there's really no point on hiding that kind of stuff. But we want to believe that those things are out there, right? Because, again, we talk about like First Nations. We also like to appropriate things, right? We don't want to look into the reasoning behind it, or what First Nations people felt was the reason for this creature. We want to take the symbolism, but we don't necessarily want to know the backstory on it, because that's just the way we like to do things as the human race. But these creatures were, and if you read the accounts, they're amazing. So they are called the Thunderbirds because they ride in on thunder. It said that lightning comes out of their eyes and thunder comes out of their wings flapping, and all that kind of stuff is really the mythology of it. But if you do have a very large bird out there, one of the ways to stay airborne and keep on going is riding these thermal updrafts that you would find in thunderstorms. So it's logical that if you did have a bird this size, you would find them frequently around thunderstorms, because they need that kind of thermodynamic movement, because a bird that size needs to stay aloft. Now, so my theory is this, Dave. My theory is that at one time there was indeed a bird, whether it was a remnant population of Argentavis magnificens, which was a very large condor that we find in the fossil record from South America in the late Pleistocene. It's very possible, there was a remnant population, or it's also possible that there was an unknown species that was here in North America that served as the genesis for the Thunderbird legend. And as I look through the historical records, I do find something very interesting in the writings of James Audubon, the bird guy. And he would go out, on these kind of field surveys, and they usually would shoot one of the birds, and then he would draw it, to scale as it would appear in life. And, we have a lot of knowledge about our birds in North America from his work. But what is interesting, in one of his writings, he drew a picture of something called Washington's eagle. And this was a very large bird. He said that it, the wingspan was quite impressive, maybe 15 feet long, but it was never seen. It was never shot, and it's never been seen by anybody. So either he had a misidentification of something like a stellar sea eagle, which is a possibility, but I don't think so. I think that he may have witnessed the last population of this particularly very large bird that simply no longer exists. That's what makes sense to me, that this was based upon an actual bird, an actual living and breathing animal, and through time we add our own little woo to it, and then from going from a bird with a 15-foot wingspan, all of a sudden now we have these monster 80-foot wingspan creatures flying around out there.
If you're seeing them in Pennsylvania, there are no lakes around. Like, I know you have lakes there, but there's not big lakes like the Great Lakes or Champlain or anything like that. Where would these things be parked up? Are there a lot of cave systems? Because you're not very mountainous there.
No. So the highest elevation we have here in Western Pennsylvania is probably about 3,000 feet. So we're just a little hill compared to the rest of the world's mountains. We have a lot of limestone in this area. So we do have cave systems, but nothing that a bird would occupy. It's not like they're overlooking some sort of vast vista and they're holed up in a cave someplace. So researchers do go out and they try to locate the nests, any type of place where these birds could be calling their habitat. And invariably, these quests, whether it's done by individuals or by people on television looking for the elusive Thunderbird, it always comes back as they found bald eagle sites, right? Whether it's the remains of a nest. I know that somebody did some collecting of some spore that they found and it ended up being from an owl, and it had cat in
Guru,
it. So
hold on to that thought. When we return with the guru, Ronald L. Murphy Jr., find his books on Amazon. We are going to get into his favorite topic, fairies and monsters, next on Spaced Out Radio. All right, Guru, we are clear.
it flew by.
Yeah.
This is the time I always go over and I check out the chats.
Me too. That's what I'm doing right now. Got to watch out for some people like Benno from Oz. He's dangerous.
Is that right?
Content, how are you doing? Tim Mothman and your goatee. Give it a little tug for us if you don't mind. He always does. Jessica S. I am so bagged today.
Your book deserves the same treatment bestsellers get. That is exactly what Spines offers at our premium level.
Is something playing in your background?
I'm actually watching you right now on my phone. Okay, I turned it down.
That's okay. So when's the Guru's next expedition?
You know what? I actually am teaching at community college right now. I'm teaching a class on the haunted history of Pennsylvania, and I'm teaching a class on introduction to cryptozoology, which I'm very glad that colleges, even if it's at the community college level, is accepting this, right? It's taking it seriously. So I'm doing that right now. So as far as an actual investigation, I have nothing planned anytime soon. So you'll have to come to Pennsylvania and do this with me.
Conferences are starting to die down, aren't they?
Oh, big time, buddy. Big. So there was an oversaturation for a while, especially in my neck of the woods, where everybody, like every conference had the exact same people, right? And you would go and it would be, whenever I do a conference, I like to change up my talk at all times because there's a chance that somebody else has seen it. So I don't want to, take away anybody's, their money or anything like that. So I try to change my talk up every time I do one. And, but some of these people do the exact same talk and they just, it becomes monotonous. Or they have the mountain monsters around here too, because they're from West Virginia. So you're right about that. You're right. The pendulum has definitely swung the other way, and I think people have just become, I don't think they're sick of the topic. I think they're tired of the people that are brandishing it, right? The ghost hunters, like with Zach Bagans and all these so-called Bigfoot experts. People don't want to see this anymore, and I think that what you said is absolutely legitimate. Things are not going well right now on the field of the cryptozoological or the paranormal.
Yeah, one thing that I noticed a number of years ago is there was this collection of people from the East Coast. They would go spot to spot up and down the coastline for wherever who was speaking. So that collective group, it would be in that group, you'd have John Tenney, you'd have Greg and Dana Newkirk, Amy Bruni, Adam Berry, the guys from the original Ghost Hunters television show. You would have Sam Baltrusis, who I'm not a fan of. You'd have this same group of people, and it was like a traveling circus, and everybody would follow them week to week to week. Well, I think what happened was they started realizing, well, hey, we could jump the prices here because these people are going to buy tickets.
Oh yeah. Oh, and I've done a couple of those tours. I've been on a couple of those slates with these guys, and they are very businesslike. But I will tell you, the more I get into it, the more I start seeing I there's a lot of snake oil salesmen out there. Let's put it that way. There's a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of people that look good on television or good on camera, but they have had no research whatsoever. They may not even have come up with an idea, but they have networked to the point where they're young, they look good on camera, and people want, for whatever reason, to see them. Right? It's kind of like a cult of personality, if you will, and they will follow these people around and take them as, the experts in the field, where they're nothing more than they are play acting, they're cosplaying that they are paranormal investigators because they know nothing about the subject.
Hold that thought, buddy. We're coming back in a few seconds. Thank you to Pam Harris being our lone super chatter of the night so far. Glad to have the ferret here. And pissing me off, Evan Walters. Thanks. Here we go. We are into the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for tuning us on in as we got the Crypto Guru coming up here momentarily. But first, we want to remind all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, our archives are always free on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. The crypto guru, Ronald Murphy, hanging on out with us. You can find all of his books on Amazon. Ron, welcome back, guru.
Thanks a lot for the second half hour. It's going quickly, Dave.
You love the fairy realm.
I do.
Why?
I think it kind of it kind of ties up all the loose ends. Okay, so if we have, it's kind of like the woo behind the science, that there is an intelligence out there on this planet that is able to either take the form of something or to put in our minds that we're seeing something that's not there. And again, the idea of the fairy is ubiquitous throughout all cultures. It is indeed an archetype. Now they go by different names and they have certain, they have a lot of similarities, but in certain cultures they're a little bit different than others. But if you look at the Australian, the idea of the dream time and their cosmology, they have something called the Wajina, which is this creature from the other side. And they also have a creature called the Mimis as well too, which inhabits the space between spaces. So I think it's very eloquent that they have these kind of creatures out there as part of their imaginations, because they're kind of like a conduit between two worlds, right? They reside in our world, but they're also part of something else in which they can go to. And that brings to mind something, the idea of a portal as well too, because they're actually hopping between worlds. But when we talk about fairies, we inevitably talk about the British outlook of them, the Western European outlook of fairies, because that's part of our imagination. And even whenever you look at that, within that culture, you have these beings that can shapeshift and become, up in Scotland, we have, the hairy wildman up there that takes shape out of mist. The idea even of lake monsters have fairy heritage in Scotland and Ireland. So to me, when we talk about the world of the Fae, this can explain all these things if we have an open enough mind. So instead of going out there and thinking that, Bigfoot is out there and Dogman is out there and all these apex predators are out there trying to share a particular topography and the same range, that shouldn't happen from a zoological point of view. So is it possible that people are seeing all these things? Is it possible that the origin of these things is one energy that is capable impacting on how we see the world around us. And as I researched into the world of the fairy, I started to look at a lot of these different theories about consciousness. And Rene Descartes had this idea of Cartesian theater, where our mind is a blank slate, of course. And within that mind, you can actually project into it to allow people to see things that aren't there. So instead of seeing, a 12-foot tall, hairy bipedal creature, it might just be an energy out there that's part of the very world itself, but it's able to allow us to believe that we're seeing something that's actually not there. And that might be the reason why we aren't able to take very good photographs of anything. We have the blob squatches and all those things, but also people say that they see these creatures and then they disappear, or they're not fully formed, or the idea of cloaking. When you look at the fairy literature, we see the idea of something called glamour, whenever these beings can take on forms other than they are, for whatever reasons. I mean, it could be a safety reason or whatever, but they want to stay, territorial. They want to stay definitely away from humanity. So it is a way for them to still stay protected and hidden. So I just love the world of the fairy, everything about it, from the art to the literature, and people have actually seen fairies. I in my book, The Unexplained World of the Chestnut Ridge, somebody was talking to me about they were up on the Chestnut Ridge taking a hike. There's a lot of hiking trails up there, and he came into this little glen, in a grove of trees, and he said that he's seen two of these creatures, how he described them. He described them as brownies, but that's a very particular type of fairy that's associated with a certain building or domicile in European folklore. But it's also part of, the Harry Potter series and all that kind of stuff. So that was the word that he came up with. But he said, for lack of a better word, he saw these two little brownies wrestling with each other. So it's already an incredible story, but it gets even a little bit more exciting. And he wasn't sure if they had clothing on or not, but he said if they did have clothing, it matched the environment enough to the point that it was almost camouflage, right? So it looked like these two little humanoid creatures were just, roughhousing on the forest floor. And he said after a few seconds, one of the creatures noticed him, and it took off and ran and disappeared into the side of a hill. And he was very adamant about saying that there was no hole in the side of the hill, right? There was no aperture or anything like that. It simply vanished into the environment itself. And the other creature, this is really cool, went through a inventory of shapeshifts, okay, before it assumed the form of a very large bird and it took off. That seems very, very wild, but there's these creatures reported in Ireland as well. And of course, when we just talked about the Thunderbird, is it possible that people are seeing Thunderbirds are actually seeing something that's out of the fairy realm? And that's the reason why we don't have any kind of physical evidence for it.
That's what sparks the skeptics. No evidence. But yet with AI, can we really believe evidence these days?
Oh, absolutely. I did a talk in Hopkinsville, Kentucky last year for the GobbleCon down there. I'll be there again this year, so it's a great place. But we talked about that. So with the proliferation of AI, there is no way that we can now be definitive in what we see as proof. Pictures, moving, moving, all that kind of stuff now is to be taken with a skeptical eye, because we're not talking about somebody hoaxing something like the Patterson-Gimlin film. We're talking about people that are able to take, artificial intelligence and bend it to the point that they are creating a, alternate reality. And it's very hard to distinguish between the two. I mean, there are some good programs out there and there are some, poor programs out there, but the ones that are very good, you cannot differentiate between that and reality. And there lies in the problem. So there are always going to be people out there that want to have a name for themselves. whether it be politics or religion or whatever. And some people see the world of the paranormal as kind of that at times. It's a place where people can gather together. It's a place where people can, share thoughts. And there's a sense of belonging there as well, too. And if somebody can belong to that group, and if they're marginalized for the rest of the time in society, then why would they not want to plant themselves firmly in that world? And I think that therein lies the problem. These aren't necessarily bad people. They might just be a little bit, lost. But in order to become part of the group, I think that it's quite easy now, with just a few presses of a button, that you can now give yourself the evidence that you need that allows that fast pass ticket into the world of the unexplained.
How do we then prove an existence if we cannot find where they live, where they're coming from? Scat samples are hard to find. Hair samples are hard to find. We don't trust video. We're going on people's words here.
That's right.
How do we
And
do it?
that wouldn't get us a conviction in a court of law. So how else are we going to do it? And this is something that's been talked about for years. They want a body. They being you and I, they being science in general.
Yeah.
Now you've been, and I will say this, I think that whenever people have a sighting, whether they like it or not, I think there's a bit of a gifting going on. Not everybody gets this. So I think whenever somebody sees this, they are allowed into kind of a peek behind the curtain. So you have witnessed something, and I still have not witnessed anything. I'm still searching. But once you peek behind the veil, you see a far different world. And we're still waiting to take a peek behind that veil. So, that they're out there. But until we have that experience, we're always going to be looking for something. We're always going to be chasing for something. And unfortunately, sometimes even if people do see something, they're not going to believe it unless they can go up there and, poke and prod it.
How close have you been to any of these creatures?
So I think that I've been, within feet of something that was not, part of the world around us. Let's put it that way. I felt, pursued almost, felt as if I were hunted before. And I've heard wood knocks before. Again, not definitive evidence. I've heard howls before, and I've experienced earth lights before too, that were within feet of where I was. But after all these cases that I've had together, whether it's something that is growling at me or something that's vocalizing or unexplained lights moving or what have you, it wasn't such a frightening experience. It was more of an enlightening experience, if you will, that for some reason, the world around me is allowing me to see something that very few people get to see. And it might just be a happenstance. It might just be that you have to be out there enough to actually, be there at the right time or the right place. Or it might be something that, as I said before, was almost gifted to you. But whatever the case may be, I've been close enough to know in my own mind that there are things out there that are living in this world, interacting in this world, that are not categorized by anything that we call in science. It's unknown. It's unknown. And I think the more you're out there in the woods, and the more you, not so much watch it on television and stuff, but the more you're actually out there, boots on the ground, as they say, you're going to get closer and closer into that domain that we no longer accept to be part of our world. So it goes from being a liminal zone to a completely other world. And the more we venture into that other world, the closer we get to the things that inhabit that world. And I think that I've been lucky on a number of occasions that I've been very close to what we've been looking for. But again, I've never had a definitive sighting about anything.
How close have you been to Sasquatch?
In the same ballpark, I would think. So one of the first expeditions I ever went out on, we were looking for. This is before the word dogman became big. This was probably 1999, 1998, somewhere right around in there. So we don't have the word dogman yet, but people are seeing, the werewolves because there was nothing else in our vernacular to call it. So we were in a particular investigation in a very secluded area, right at the base of the Chestnut Ridge, where this creature had been sighted. And me and a fellow investigator, we were out on this old abandoned train trestle. And when we were out there, we start experiencing anomalies. So this is something that's typical on ghost hunts, but we are noticing now that our batteries are being drained, our flashlights aren't working. A lot of crazy stuff going on, and this is completely unexpected. And then we start seeing in the environment itself something that looks like static electricity, like whenever you pull a blanket off of a bed on a winter's day and you see these sparks. These sparks now were happening all around us, almost as if there's lightning going around us. And so we are immediately taken back by this, so we need to get out of here. So we turn to leave, and whenever we turn, a light comes. I want to use the word ignite because that's the way it looked. It looked as if something ignited into our reality and this just kind of flickered off, almost if you would light up a flare, something like that. This kind of glittering light, and it was white light, and it only happened for a brief, probably no more than 3 seconds. And we were really taken aback, but in order to get back to where we were located, we had to get out of that area. So we had to go that way. And as we enter that area, this is where the woods swallow up the environment again, right? So we were out on this train trestle, and now we're venturing back into the woods. And on our right-hand side, as soon as we enter the woods, right where the light came on, we hear something now on our right-hand side following us. Not only is it following us, but you can also hear it breathing. You can hear it snarling. And that is the time whenever I spoke to you a little bit earlier here, Dave, the idea that I was being pursued, the first time that I felt like prey and that there was a predator out there, it's one of those things where there's a bit of that still left in us, and that part of our brain that has been, it's almost lost, but we still have, vestigially it's still there. But I felt as if I was being stalked, and my friend who was with me as well too felt the exact same way. So I don't think that was a Bigfoot per se, but I think that we were very close to the creature that they would call the dogman, for lack of a better word back then. But we both felt it, and we both were able to get out of there unscathed. But so it's instances like that that I think that we were very, very close. And then whenever I was not even writing books or anything like that, but what really kind of put me over the edge on the Bigfoot phenomenon is I was in graduate school up at IUP, up at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. And we were living in an area that bordered a place called White's Woods, which is this university property. It's a preserve, there was no hunting there or anything like that. And my brother and I were living up there together. And, I was in my 20s. And every summer, we would hear something coming from the woods that sounded like a howl, and it only happened between the hours of 12 a.m. and 3 a.m., the classic witching hour, which is kind of strange too. And it only happened whenever it was in the summertime and when there's no rain. So it only happened in certain conditions. But we said, we're going to go out and investigate this if this happens again. So we hear this sound, this whoop, whoop sound, and it's about 2:30 in the morning. We open up the door. I grab this is pretty kick-ass. I grab a ninja sword, and my brother grabs a baseball bat because we're serious about this. We go out on the porch, and this is the first time we ever go outside whenever this creature is vocalizing, and you can hear the whoops. You can not only hear them, but you can actually feel them in your body. You can feel the vibration. You can actually feel your rib cage vibrate because the sonic level of that was so incredibly high. And we were taken aback by that, but we thought, hey, look, we're in our 20s, we're in good shape, we have weapons, let's go see what's going on here. So we ventured to the back of the house, and in the back of the house was a small grove of trees that led to the White's Woods, to the nature preserve. And whatever was making this whoop whoop sound was in that grove of trees. And as we got closer to the point that we probably would be able to physically see what it was, it starts growling at us. Now, the thing is, though, not only is it growling at us, and you can hear it taking in air, and it's a very wet sound, but as it's growling at us, it's also doing that whoop whoop sound at the same time. So very territorial. So we ran. I mean, there's no way, even if we have a sword and a baseball bat and all that stuff, we're not hanging around for this. So we ran back to the house. And after that, it never came around again. But whether that, for lack of a better word, I mean, Bigfoot, sure. I mean, what else? That's the only thing that made any logical sense at the time. So it may be that I was only, maybe 20 feet, from Bigfoot at that particular moment.
How would you react, Ron, if you actually were standing face to face with one? Have you ever thought about that?
I have. A lot of times, especially whenever my kids were younger. Now, my kids are almost all grown now, but whenever my kids were younger, we didn't necessarily go out on expeditions, but we would take hikes, and never any place too out of the way. I mean, we were always on trails and everything, but we would take the kids out and we would look for things and listen for things. But I always thought, I would never want to encounter anything under those conditions. But whenever I've been out by myself, investigating with a group of people, as much as I would like to have that happen, I wouldn't want it to happen to me alone. I would rather be in a group, and then we kind of make a group kind of decision about what's going on, because, I want to say that there's a bit of bravery in me, but there's too much of self-preservation in me as well, too, to think that I would not stand there very long. There's just no way. As much as I want to see these things and know that they exist, there's also a deep part of me that also does not want to be there alone, because I simply don't know how I would react. I really don't.
A lot of tough people out there, Ron, who say, oh, I would chase it down. I would go try and grab a hair sample. I would, flick it in the nose. I'd give it a kiss, whatever it may be.
That's right.
Selfie. Doesn't work that way, does it?
It doesn't work that way. No. Even hearing something, even those stories I just told you, even though I didn't see anything and I just heard something, that was enough for me to feel instinctually that we don't want to get any closer to this truth, right? That there's something out there that we simply do not understand. It obviously exists in our world for some period of time, whether it comes in and out of our reality through a portal or interdimensional or whatever you want to call it, because I don't understand how that works. But whatever it is out there exists within our world in a reality basis, in a physical form, at least sometimes, or it can exist in our physical world at least sometimes. And I know from those kind of anecdotal encounters, I don't want to get any closer, especially if I were by myself.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
There's a lot of people
that 90 seconds to go before we're going to go to break here at the top of the hour. The guru. We call him the crypto guru around here, Ronald Murphy. You can get all of his books on Amazon. That face-to-face encounter that you thought of, scary, peaceful, loving, spiritual?
So my encounters with lights, okay, and you can find this all written down in my book called Lights in the Mist, which was published by Small Town Monsters Press. That gives some detailed information on an encounter I had with earth lights. And that felt like a religious experience, because we didn't see any kind of, monster. We didn't see any kind of, figures or anything like that. We were just dealing with these anomalous lights that were interacting with us. But it almost felt like a religious experience, because there seemed to be intelligence within the lights, and we also were not frightened by it. There was no kind of malevolence going on whatsoever. It was very opening, and it was almost as if these lights were inquiring why we were there and evaluating why we were there. So at that point, it was very spiritual, you know. But the other times, and whether it's infrasound or pheromones or whatever, I think a lot of that stuff is used as well by these creatures so they can stay territorial without being confrontational. So they want to get you out of their territory as quickly as humanly possible, and they're able to do that. And I think whenever I went outside and I felt that reverberation in my chest, that was their way of saying, don't come any closer. And then whenever you get a little bit closer, that's whenever the growling starts. But there are people, like you said, there are people that would venture even closer. And I will add that a lot of people go out on hikes and are never seen again.
We got the guru for another hour on Spaced Out Radio. Go check out his books on Amazon. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, Guru, we got about 5.5 minutes, okay?
All right, buddy. Yeah, good enough. I'll go to the bathroom.
Here we go.
Our merch is Bigfoot approved. We have t-shirts, we have mugs, we have hoodies, we have socks, we have hats, we have stickers, and so much more. Whatever you're looking for, we have you covered. Why just be a fan of the paranormal when you can buy Spaced Out Radio merch and look the part? Our merch ain't ugly, folks. Check out the Spaced Out Radio store. Find the link in the description below.
Lurking within the forested region of the 108-mile ranch, where the worlds of the normal and paranormal collide. CRYPTID is waiting for you, bringing together a panel of renowned experts in the paranormal, cryptid research, and UFO phenomena fields. Get ready for a spine-tingling weekend in the heart of British Columbia. Enjoy fascinating discussions, presentations, tours of local haunted areas, and skywatching. Learn from investigators, authors, and enthusiasts who explore everything from ghost hunting techniques to sightings of Sasquatch and beyond. Whether you're a seasoned paranormal researcher or just love a good spooky story, this is your chance to connect with fellow enthusiasts in one of BC's most mysterious areas. Tickets are on sale now. Grab yours before they're gone. Visit cariboucon.com for details, tickets, and updates.
Are you ready to dive into the weird and wonderful world of cryptids, cartoons, and chaos? Meet Dirty Filth, Spaced Out Radio's resident cartoonist and master of the mysterious. Every Saturday at 2 p.m. Pacific, join him live on the Spaced Out Radio YouTube channel for Cryptid Cartoons with Dirty Filth, a hilarious hour where he sketches bizarre beasts, shares mind-bending stories, and battles his mischievous cats. Whether you're a UFO enthusiast, paranormal fan, or just love quirky art, Dirty Filth filters the universe through his unique lens, creating cartoons that capture the strange, dark, and supernatural. Follow Dirty Filth on X at Filth1 or Facebook at Dear Filth for more filthy fun. Find his link in the description below.
Spaced Out Radio wants to hear from you. We love our community, and your voice truly matters. Drop a comment after every show and let us know what you thought. Agree with our guests? Tell us why. Disagree? We want to hear that too. We read every single comment. Jump into the live chat during the broadcast and be part of the conversation in real time. Got a killer topic idea? Your suggestions help shape the show. And if you want to take it even further, join our Patreon for bonus content and direct feedback opportunities with Dave and the team. This is your show as much as it is ours. Whether you're a longtime listener or brand new, we want your thoughts, your questions, and your ideas. And let's keep building this incredible community together. Spaced Out Radio, where the conversation never ends. What are you waiting for? We're listening.
With 5 explorable Gold Rush-era buildings said to be home to spirits of a time forgotten, the 108-mile heritage site in the heart of BC's Caribou region offers a unique opportunity for thrill seekers and history buffs. For an evening of historical fun, step into our guided ghost tours, where spine-chilling stories of Gold Rush legends and unexplained encounters come alive. For those craving even more, inquire with us about conducting a hands-on paranormal investigation of your own. And if you're truly brave, book our haunted sleepovers. Spend the night at our B&B inside the McNeil House to truly experience this historical landmark and its ghostly secrets firsthand. For booking or inquiries, go to haunted108.com.
All right, we have me, we have the guru, and we have all of you hanging on out. Thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate you. Anybody jump in here? Take a quick look. Lil Cam, how you doing? All right, we're coming back in 10 seconds, Guru.
All righty.
Thank you to Pam Harris for our lone super chat of the night. If you haven't already, do us a favor. Give us a thumbs up. It helps with our algorithms. Here we go. Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We always appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Malicization. Malicization is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. We bring in Ronald L. Murphy Jr. We call him the crypto guru around these parts. So does everybody else for that matter. You can find all of his awesome, amazing books on cryptids, fairies, and more on Amazon. Guru, welcome back.
Thanks a lot for having me, buddy. Halfway over. I cannot believe how quickly this goes.
Always goes fast with you.
It does.
Let's get right into the monster talk here, because so many people believe that these Sasquatch and Dogman that are out there sometimes struggle to coexist in the same areas. You live in an area called the Chestnut. You've investigated and written a book about the Chestnut Ridge.
That's right.
Where they have both.
Yep, they have both.
How does it work?
I don't know how it works. That's it really blows me away whenever I do research, because sometimes there's a Bigfoot sighting and a Dogman sighting that almost overlaps, days apart. So a couple things are going on. Number one, there's a misidentification that somebody's seeing the same animal and they're simply mistaken about what they're seeing, and they're actually seeing either a Dogman or a Bigfoot and not both. Number two, and this is one of the theories that I have, is that one or both of these creatures are migratory and they don't stay put for very long. So sometimes their range overlaps. Or number three, again, we have come back to the idea of the fairy realm, where these things are just simply manifestations of the earth themselves. They don't actually live there as flesh and blood creatures. So I guess those are the three theories that I have. If any of your listeners have anything, because it really doesn't make any sense. And if there were these two apex predators in this particular area, there would probably be some sort of territoriality going on, and the likelihood of you finding something that has been, torn apart by the other, the chances would be quite high. I found deer that have been predated by coyotes before here in Pennsylvania, and so I think whenever two animals clash in a particular environment, it's not like a Disney movie, right? Or maybe it is like a Disney movie. Something's going to get killed. So we don't have any of that. We don't have any proof of any bodies or anything. So I'm not sure. Although there have been people that have made documentaries regarding, the Bigfoot battlegrounds and everything. But I've heard stories about this kind of stuff, but I've never seen anything with my own eyes. But right, from a purely scientific standpoint, these two predators these two, whether they are, predators, or if they're, omnivorous or whatever the case may be, these two large beings shouldn't be here in the first place, let alone overlapping the same territory. So I don't know what's going on. I really don't. That's why it's the mysterious world of the Chestnut Ridge.
There are all of these weird locations like the Chestnut Ridge, my area up here, Flight 21. You look at Skinwalker Ranch.
Absolutely.
Triangle, another one. There are all of these weird, strange areas that have multiple species with multiple different encounters happening. Do you think that there are certain areas in our forests and open areas that just seem to have these portals where high strangeness comes in and out as it pleases?
Absolutely. Without a doubt. Last summer, I was able to go on an expedition in the hunt for the skunk ape in Florida. I was in the Everglades, and we were in the Miaka, where the famous Miaka photograph had come from. And it was, it's a very foreign world down there, but a lot of strange things happen there. So not only are there sightings of the skunk ape, but also UFOs as well too, and a lot of haunted areas within that realm. The Bridgewater Triangle is another place, hauntings, Bigfoot, UFOs, and throughout the world. Loch Ness, there's the triangle there as well too, where you have a lot of high strangeness going on. From the lake monster sightings to UFOs as well too, or the gray man. All this kind of stuff exists in these areas, in these very small areas. And I really like the idea of ley lines, although we don't talk about them too much here in the United States. But the idea that the world is crisscrossed with this power grid almost, and on certain places on that grid, there is an upburst of power that's different than other places, and that's where this high strangeness takes place. I do like that idea. I think that works quite well. But yeah, absolutely, there are definitely, without a doubt, pockets of high strangeness around. Now, after my the sighting that the incident I had with a creature that was walking next to me in the woods, and also after I had these encounters with the Earthlights, I was contacted by the producers of Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, and they asked the exact same question, Dave, what's going on here? Why is it like this? So I had, along with these sightings of these lights, before the sighting happened, there was also the sound of wind chimes, which really was unnerving as well too. There was a tinkling sound that would happen that had a musicality to it, and I never heard that before, and it was very extremely strange. So Skinwalker Ranch, Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, decided they were going to come out, they were going to interview me, and they were going to do an in-depth investigation into the area where I'd witnessed this strange stuff before. So they brought in these flatbed trucks, and they had tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment out in the middle of nowhere that they were able to bring in. And it was very illuminating, right? And they were able to figure out that the environment was actually radiating some sort of impulse around us. And they were able to take these numbers and translate them into sound, into a sound value. And whenever they did that, the sound that came up was the sound of these wind chimes that I had heard. So I got a little bit of validation from that. Whenever you go and you tell stories that seem, quite ridiculous, and you're going to be ridiculed by it, there's a sense of validation whenever things like this happen. So at least in my own mind, I was validated that what I heard wasn't a figment of my imagination, and it might have been the environment itself kind of communicating or interacting with me on a very particular level, which I've never felt before. So because they came out, and because we did get some sort of evidence from that as well too, I think undoubtedly there are areas around this world that are more susceptible to these kind of things than other places.
Do you think these creatures mean us harm?
No, I don't. I think they can be, again, we talk about territoriality. I think that they can be territorial, but I don't think that they are like actively coming into our world. Like, these are flesh and blood animals, and there are things like Dogman, and there are things like Bigfoot. I don't think they're leaving their domain to enter into our neighborhoods to hunt us. I think that anytime there's any kind of problems that arise is whenever we go into their domain and we are idiots. It's the same way whenever people go out and they start, messing around with a rattlesnake, and then they complain that they get bit. I think that it's the same type of reasoning that goes on, that just simply do not molest something you don't understand.
Dogman, this is the one creature that scares the living hell out of me.
Me too.
There's nothing comfortable about it. From the stories I have heard, it just absolutely scares the daylights out of some werewolf-like creature that stands 7-8 feet tall with a wolf's head and a humanoid type body.
Right.
That just seems all too powerful and all too enraged.
Right. And that's a great point there, David. So of the thousands of stories that I've read, throughout the historical record, because Plato writes about people transforming into wolves. Herodotus does. I mean, there's a litany of famous writers that have written about lycanthropy and transformation. The idea that there's something out there that's humanoid and also dog-like as well is, a fascinating point of conjecture that goes back well into the, ancient Egypt. Whenever we talk about the Anubis figure, that goes back to the pre-dynastic Egypt. So quite an ancient myth there about the idea that there's a dog man. But of everything that I've researched, and everything that every report that I've taken, everybody I've spoken to, there is never a positive interaction with the dogman. With Bigfoot, sometimes it's almost like a hippie experience, right? It's like draped in patchouli, and everybody's having good times, and the acoustic guitar is playing. It's almost like the brother, your wild brother, is finally coming home. But with Dogman, it's not like that. It is definitely something to be feared. Almost akin to like a skinwalker, right? Because in Navajo belief, the skinwalker is always malevolent. Like, there's nothing good about it whatsoever. And even there's a belief that it comes from a witch, you know what I mean? So there's this evil that's projected onto the world that manifests itself in the form of a skinwalker. And that's basically what we're dealing with here. The dogman is nothing but sheer bestial, evil. If we're going to go to a Judeo-Christian type of thing, there's an evil to it that it's embodied in that, right? And it's something that is to be feared and terrified. Like I said, there's been no interactive experience that I've ever read about where somebody was glad that they met a dogman.
I want to get into a controversial topic with you right now, because I know you have strong feelings about the idea in the past month that the Patterson-Gimlin film is fake.
So a lot of stuff has been going on. And entire camps of researchers are falling apart about this. I've not seen the film. Apparently, the film purports that the Patterson-Gimlin film was not only a hoax, but there was proof to show that it was a hoax. Okay. I wrote a book called On Wildman, Tracking Bigfoot Through History, several years ago, something like that. And I did not mention the Patterson-Gimlin film in that, even though it's a very provocative piece of information. And the reason why I did not mention it is because as a researcher, I do not want to build my thesis on Bigfoot based upon that particular film. Because if something like this happens and it does fall apart, then I can still have my research out there that stands alone. The problem with the Patterson-Gimlin film, my friend, is this. If there are researchers out there that have staked their entire reputation on the fact that this creature was indeed a flesh and blood creature that was photographed at Bluff Creek in 1967. That is where the mid-tarsal break comes from. That's now a popular thing and Bigfootery, right? A lot of things that we imagine Bigfoot to be comes from that film. So whenever you think of Bigfoot, immediately that image comes to mind. So a lot of people are saying, well, if that is fake, then there is no reason at all to believe that Bigfoot is real. And it doesn't come out to that. It's not that simple. That could be very well faked. But the reason why it was hoaxed and the reason why it was so readily accepted is because there was a lineage of that particular creature in the Pacific Northwest through Native American stories and through stories of settlers as well, too. The reason it makes sense is because it fits into historical context. If they pulled one over on us, I say kudos to them. But what they were only doing is bringing to the surface the idea that something like that out there exists. You couldn't have done that really in Western Pennsylvania because we don't have that type of history involved. It has to be in that particular time and place in order for it to come about. So people were saying, years before that, they were faking footprints. They found the wooden cast and all that kind of stuff. And all that stuff may be real. I mean, that might be true. Like everything about the Bigfoot legend in the Pacific Northwest may have been faked, but that still does not mean it doesn't exist. What it means is there was people out there that took it upon themselves to appropriate a particular legend and bring it to life, more or less, right? And what they're doing is they're showing fake evidence that people want. That's what we talked about that earlier. People want evidence. People want to believe. And these charlatans are bringing that to there and say, here you go. Here's your, here's what you've been looking for. But as a researcher, that really doesn't impact me whatsoever because I believe that there's enough in the Native American tradition and there's enough in traditions around the world about the hairy wild man that it was something that existed at least into historical times. It may no longer be there. It might now be an extinct a creature, or there might be remnant populations of such a thing. But whatever that case may be, as a researcher, that does not take away from the validity of Bigfoot and Sasquatch research.
I'm a firm believer the video is real.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing will convince me otherwise because when I had my close encounter in 2013, where I got the right side and back profile of this creature, maybe 75 feet away from me, it scared the daylight out of me. Looking at the size, the sheer strength of this creature, it never looked at me, but it just kept walking through until it disappeared behind some shrubs and some trees. I look at that creature and I look at the Patterson-Gimlin film, and it just was the same. The conical shaped head, no neck, right to the shoulders. The head was attached. Like I closed my eyes and I could put myself right in that spot again, just looking at the reddish brown hair on it. I mean, that was my closest encounter that I've had that I know of. And when I compare that to what we see on the Patterson-Gimlin film, It just seems so logical that that film is real. The way it walks, the way you can tell it's female because of the breasts on it. Okay, and I think that theory, especially with the breasts, not to make it sexist, but I believe that the breasts really show how real the creature is, let alone looking at it from a 1960s perspective and somebody saying, "Hey, let's sew a pair of boobs on here." It's not what people were doing back then, my man.
Right. No, that's absolutely true. Now I can play the devil's advocate and say that this was based upon an eyewitness sketch from a few years before that showed a Bigfoot that looked very much like the Patty in the Patterson-Gimlin film that was actually also drawn with breast as well too from this eyewitness account. But again, I will get back to you and say this. The reason why they hoaxed it, whether it was a hoax or not, but if they did indeed hoax it, the reason why they did it is because people were seeing these things out there, right? There was only one Patterson-Gimlin film, but before that, people were still witnessing these things and still seeing these things and still representing them on totem poles. I wished it would be real. I really do, because as a kid, I was born in '69, so this came out several years before I was born. So I remember, sitting on my couch as just a wee lad, maybe 3 years old, and seeing this creature stroll across my floor model black and white television, right? And it was one of those things where it was as real as any real on Marlon Perkins, Mutual of Omaha Wild Kingdom. It was something that was out there in the woods. And, again, my mother and I were watching this together, and those kind of moments inspired me to believe that there's things out there that we don't understand. And this is one of those ultimate kind of mysteries, and the abominable snowman as well. But the reason why people hoax these things is they're not making it out of thin air. The reason why they're hoaxing these things is because it's based upon other people's reality. And we must always remember that. So even if this comes out as there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, this is definitely a hoax, that in no way says that Bigfoot does not exist.
I just want the controversy to be over. I mean, this is something that has, treated Bob Gimlin, who's still alive in his mid-90s. People have treated him like garbage his whole life. I mean, remember back in the day, because of the release of this film, both him and Roger Patterson were getting death threats.
Oh, sure.
Over a Bigfoot video, man.
Exactly. For everything that's going on in the world, the last thing you want to do is start berating an elderly gentleman because, something happened that he couldn't explain. I don't think that he was in on it at all. If this was a fake, I think that this was a Roger Patterson thing. But again, I'm going to reserve judgment. I have not seen the film or anything, and it's going to have to be pretty clear that this was hoax. But I think that even if that is the case, even if it seems, unequivocal that this is definitely a hoax, that still doesn't prove anything, because an hour ago we were just talking about AI and how easy things are to fake. So we don't even know if the proof that we're looking at is real.
No, I absolutely agree with you. So we've got about 90 seconds to go before we go to break here at the bottom of the hour. The Guru is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Outside of the Patterson film, let's say the last 20 years, Ron, is there a video that even looks real?
No. People will say about the Freeman video, I think it's crap. I don't think there's any semblance of reality to it whatsoever. And compared to the Patterson-Gimlin film, it just doesn't make any sense. It looks like a big lumbering costume. But there's nothing out there. There's no, even from the one photograph that was taken from a train, that was proved to be a hoax. Even that wasn't as good as the Patterson-Gimlin film, and that was made within the last 2 years with all the technology that we have. So, so whatever's going on there, Bigfoot definitely does not like to be photographed.
No, and yet I don't see a video out there that just really encapsulates what we see in Patterson-Gimlin.
With exactly, and you would think that somebody would be able to duplicate it, frame by frame. They say that, we created a suit, we took everything that they did, and now we're going to do it on the same camera and everything. And it's been attempted, but it all looks like garbage because nobody's been able to replicate it as well as these two cowboys did back in 1967. And there comes the problem, because if it is going to be a hoax, then they were able to perpetrate something that they shouldn't have been able to do.
I agree. And now we have to wait. And, the sad part about it is, with the real advancement of AI right now, I don't know if we can even look for that anymore.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And you see this all the time. You can take a black and white picture of your family, deceased family members,
Hold that
and
thought.
animate it. Sure.
Hold that thought. The Guru, we got him for another half hour on Spaced Out Radio.
Listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
Guru, I'm sorry, I read my clock wrong there.
That's okay.
All right, let's say hello to... I'm way too tired to type tonight, guys. Eva, how are you? Bucky St. Monaco, how are you? Cool Arrow, nice to see you. Jessica Davenport, because she likes a soft J. And let's go over here. And Hillbilly Herb, nice to see you. Scoose, always a pleasure, Scoose. Yes, I know it's Scouse, but it's so much more fun to say Scoose. Skip to Malou, good morning to you. Nicholas Wood, how are you? I think we're caught up. Lee Strauss, if you're watching. He's watching. Guru, is that a different hat?
Nope, sir. This is the same hat that I've had for years and years.
It looks lighter.
It might be different lighting or something like that I'm under, or something like that. I've been worrying a lot. My kids have really got into fishing, and I've been taking them out fishing almost every evening. So we might have a little bit of sun bleaching going on here. But I'm glad to see them as well too. I mean, this is a 13-year-old kid that would rather be out there fishing for trout and bass than playing video games. I'm very, very thankful for that.
Yep. Hey, what are you fishing for?
It's trout season here right now in Pennsylvania, but there's a lot of bass biting as well today. So today we caught 2 bluegill and what did we get? Like 3 or 4 bass or something like that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah, and they like to use lures, which is really cool as well. So they get a bit of satisfaction by catching something that's artificial, which is great. But yeah, we're out in the woods and around nature now that the weather is getting better almost every day.
Right.
So do you have spring up there now, or is it still snowing?
Yeah, no, it's spring. All the lakes are melted, and
that's good.
I'm going to try either tomorrow or Sunday to get out to my spot.
Good.
If anything, my gifting site moved over the winter.
Oh, right. Now, I didn't ask you because it's been a while since I've been on. Did you do much hunting last year?
I did.
Yeah. And how'd you do?
I got a few grouse. I didn't really see any deer.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I wasn't looking.
Right.
And like right now it's bear season, and I just really like bears, and I could never see myself taking a bear.
Yeah, I'm not a predator hunter at all. I wouldn't go for bear either. Deer, and we used to have a lot of grouse in Pennsylvania, but I haven't seen a grouse probably for 25, 30 years.
Yeah, they're still there though.
Yeah, they're there, sure.
I will say this though, I've had bear jerky.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good.
It really is. Yeah, I've had it as well too. It's really good. Yeah, I just don't have it in me to look at something like that and pull the trigger. Just couldn't do it.
Yeah, I'm like that with deer.
It's a shame God made them so tasty, though. That's the whole problem, you know?
I know. I know. We got about a minute, Guru.
All righty. And pretty soon you'll be able to find the sweet release in sleep as well. I'm looking for you pretty soon.
I apologize for the yawning, man.
That's okay. That's okay.
All right. Where are we here? There we go. I can tell you right now, this show is going to be edited tomorrow.
Yeah, I have YouTube on my phone, so I switch back and forth to see what everybody's commenting over there.
Yeah, perfect. Here we go. We are into the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for joining us as we bring in the crypto guru, Ronald Murphy. You can find all of his books on Amazon. We were talking about close encounters right before the break, Ron. And, you know, as much as I would love to have a close encounter with Sasquatch, and I'm talking, buddy, I am talking within 10, 15 feet. It's not the same for Dogman.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, you know, you don't hear any kind of stories about like coming upon Dogman puppies or anything, you know. The whole world of the Dogman is so just bizarre. And the other thing is that the more I investigate, and this is stories that are coming from even park rangers that will sometimes admit that they see things. And they talk about going into wild places, you know, and something's just sitting there staring at them, you know, just kind of like watching them. That's the other freaky thing about this too with the Dogman is sometimes they will just linger in the shadows watching what you're doing, which, you know, this is all very unnerving. And there are also stories coming out like in Maine where they can mimic people's speech. I'm sure you've heard of things like that as well, where they're calling out somebody's name or trying the handles on the door of a house, you know, late at night. So this is all very uncanny. So whatever's going on with this Dogman creature, it's beyond the realms of just a regular animal, right? There's something very, very frightening going on with this creature. Not only is it elusive, but it also has an intelligence that's not seen in these other creatures as well.
How do you think they survive? Do you think they are interdimensional beings? Do you think they do have supernatural capability?
You know, a lot of people say that that's a cop-out, and I will use that cop-out. The reason why I don't think that we don't have bodies and we don't have, you know, all this evidence is because I think that they are part of our world, but they're under our reality or over our reality. It's like an onion, right? So we start peeling an onion, and sometimes you can see through one of those layers. It's all the same part of the same onion, but it's hidden in layers. So if you want to call that another dimension, that's fine. But it's part of our reality, but they're only physical within our reality at certain points and at certain times. And I'm also starting to believe, I mentioned on your show previously in the past, that I also think there's almost a connection made whenever you witness a creature like this. That I said about gifting, whenever it comes to Bigfoot, but it could be any kind of paranormal, whether it's a ghost or a dogman or whatever. But I think that there's a certain resonance that's being put out, if you want to call, vibration or whatever. And if you go and your vibration syncs up with their vibration, it kind of generates then whatever's out there. So it's almost it's almost like a contract that you're not cognizant that you're making, that you're in a particular area and you're synced up with that area to the point that you're able to manifest that which is out there. It's almost like an interchange of energy whenever you think about with hauntings that, these ghosts, these entities have to pull energy from the environment. And that may be very well what we're talking about here as well.
What is the best Dogman or Bigfoot story you have been told?
Oh, let's see here. Well, as a kid, I was really enamored by the Ape Canyon story. That was one of the things that really had me going there whenever these miners were prospecting in California, and something, that they saw something around their camp. They took a shot at it, whether they hit it or not, they weren't certain. But that particular evening, they were attacked by these apes, and to this day, that's why it's called Ape Canyon. I always like that story. I also like the story. The guy's name's gonna slip my mind now. I believe it was in 1912. Osman, whenever he was camping, and something
Albert Osman.
Yeah, exactly. Albert Osman. He gets picked up and he's carried to a place where this clan of Bigfoot lives, and he's able to get out of there by giving the alpha male some chewing tobacco, and off he goes. These are great tells from whenever I was a kid, and I devoured them with all my childish imagination, and it really kept me going. But I mean, for the people that I've encountered now later in life, the Ron Moorhead vocalizations are extremely interesting. He has a great book out called Quantum Bigfoot that goes into the spiritual, almost, even the religious side of Bigfoot. I think that might be going a little bit too far, but it does echo. If you read the firsthand accounts of the Ape Canyon encounter, it also has a very spiritual element to it as well. It's just not so cut and dry that these guys were being attacked by these unknown ape creatures. But those are the big stories from my past. I think as we get into the modern era, it is the story from Ron Moorhead, which goes back into the 1970s. And I'm trying to think about anything really very modern, because what happens now as we get more into the modern days, they become almost reiterating stories from the past. So I like all those classic tells, but the Robert Osman, I've always liked that.
What about recent history? Like you have people telling you encounter stories all the time.
I do, but it always involves, I was riding my quad. They're not so much boring. They don't make good tells, but people tell me stories all the time that are kind of like play by play, and they don't have that same type of allure to them as these other classic stories. But those stories that I'm being told are much more realistic to me. We're out riding our quad, we're out hunting, something like that is going on, and they see something. And I was at a particular conference, and this one big burly guy comes up to my table, tattoos on his face, down his arm and everything. And he goes, "You don't believe in this shit, do you?" And I said, "Well, I like to keep an open mind." And then he went to the other side of the room and he waited for a few minutes, and he came back, and he literally had tears in his eyes. And he starts telling me a story about he was out hunting, and it was very straightforward. He was out hunting. Something stands up and crosses his path. He described it as a very large bipedal creature. He could not explain what was going on. and it wasn't terrifying in any way. It didn't approach him or anything like that. But he was so shocked and stunned by the encounter that it affected him systemically, right? I mean, he was weeping over this because he saw something that he didn't want to see.
You know what? That's actually a very good point, because most hunters are alpha type people.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Whether they're male or female, doesn't matter. They're alpha type people who think they are the king of the jungle when they are out there. And all of a sudden have an experience where you're crossing paths with something that you don't believe exists. You only think those idiots on television go looking for something. And I've been in the forest hunting for 27 years and I've never seen anything like this. And then it happens. And it either stuns them to the point where they can't believe it exists, or it makes them emotional because they are just so in shock and awe of what just took place.
Amen. That's right. So, my dad was a bit of a sportsman. You know, he would take me out hunting whenever I was a kid, and as an adult, I still go fishing. I still go hunting and all that stuff. Not as much as I wished I would, but I've harvested deer before, and I've been pretty successful as a hunter. But I've never encountered a black bear in Pennsylvania. I've never encountered a lynx in Pennsylvania. There are animals out there that are regularly seen, and I've never seen anything like that. So to say that they're not out there just because you haven't seen them doesn't amount to much. I was actually at a conservation conference a couple weekends ago, and Pennsylvania, out of the entire population, only about 6% of Pennsylvania's population hunts. That's an extremely low number. So there's not a lot of people out in the woods. So people would, always say, hunters would be seeing these things and stuff. Hunters might see them if there was 3 million people out in the woods. But we're talking about, at any given time, maybe 30,000 people out in the woods, encompassing a vast area. So it's not like these things still cannot be hidden. And I think that's what we don't understand. Again, we think because, we go out in the woods, we're going to see everything that's out there. And that's definitely not the case.
No, that's very, very true. How about dogman encounters? Have you talked to people who've had them?
Absolutely. And I was able to get a couple of retired conservation workers to talk. One gentleman talked about seeing, now he didn't, this was more of a Bigfoot thing. He remembers that seeing this, he didn't describe it as a shadow, but it was a dark figure. It was during sunset that was moving around the periphery of this wooded opening where he was at. And he said, he had no idea what he saw. He didn't report it to anybody, but he saw something that was walking upright, very gray in color, right as the sun was setting, during twilight. So, and the other one that I had is whenever there was a gentleman that was on patrol and was way back in the middle of nowhere, where he sees a dog man and the dog man just stares at him, right? It's just looking at him almost as if it's, looking right into his soul, as he said. So we do have people that make it their income, their livelihood, to be out in the woods all the time. But because it is their livelihood and it is their income, they don't say anything because they don't want to lose their job. I mean, it's really as simple as that. I think a lot of things like that are being seen. They're just not being talked about until after the people retire because they're afraid of ridicule.
Well, the job is a big one too, like you just mentioned.
Yep.
And
right.
Either way, are you going to trade a Bigfoot for a paycheck every 2 weeks?
Bingo. Are you going to trade a Bigfoot story for a paycheck, right? It would be one thing if you had the body in your pickup truck bed, but are you going to tell that story? Because at the end of the day, this is a subjective experience and you don't want to lose your paycheck because you have a story to tell. That's why we have conferences and they come up to us, because I kind of take the place of a priest in this arena. And people come up because they have something that's burdening their soul, and they need to tell somebody, but they need to tell somebody that's not going to condemn them in any way or ridicule them in any way. So they think the guy with the beard who's wearing a hat that writes about Bigfoot, I can tell this story and at least get it off of my chest. And that's why I love doing these conferences, because I get to hear from people that have no reason to lie, tell me these great stories. And like I said, a lot of them are very mundane. It's just something passes them that they can't explain. It's nothing melodramatic. It's just something as simple as that. But in that simplicity, and the simplicity of these stories really reveals not only the emotions, but the honesty that there's something else out there that we don't know about.
Have you had any encounters or heard stories of people who've had more scary encounters with Sasquatch and Dogman?
Yeah, sure. You hear stories. Eric Altman has a great story. He was the founder of the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society. That whenever he was a kid camping at a church camp, something was coming in and around the cabins, peering through the windows and such. Now, I don't believe that he saw anything definitively, but we do get these stories a great deal where something comes to these camps where the children are located and either are looking through the windows, or there are some stories as well where the creature actually comes into the camp as well, into the cabin. And I've heard that on numerous occasions where, children are hiding under the cover. So all of these fears that we have, these childhood fears that we have, that you're going to go under the covers and somehow the covers will save you. Well, apparently in these situations, the covers did save them because they kind of huddled away until the thing passed through. But these are rare cases, but it shows how inquisitive a Bigfoot could be too. This creature that we call Bigfoot. That
Let me stop you right there for a second, because I'm always curious about Bigfoot's curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
This is a creature that just seems like a house cat, like it can't stop itself, Ron.
Right. The kind of curiosity kills the cat, right? And I think that's the case. But we're dealing also with children, which is very pertinent, because children and women, I think, draw these creatures in more than a guy out in the woods with a gun, because they're non-threatening. Right. They're wondering why they're in the woods. Let me go investigate why this is going on. They're not so apt to do that because they understand that if a guy's out in the woods, it could mean something bad is going to happen. Right. Just because of our interactions with men throughout the years, Bigfoot understand that. But whenever it comes to women and children, they seem to be a little less restrictive on their habitats, and they'll actually go and investigate. So, and Lauren Coleman said if Bigfoot's ever going to be discovered by a team of researchers, it's going to be a team of women. And I think there's some credence to that.
I always wondered about that, Ron.
Yeah.
I always wondered.
Yeah. Somebody, I was just glancing over the topic. So the other thing is, I live in Appalachia, right? And a lot of people don't think that Western Pennsylvania is part of the Appalachians, but it is. And, there's a lot of creepy things that happen there. And when we look at the Chestnut Ridge, that's definitely part of the Appalachian Plateau. So when you talked about earlier about the geography of the area, I think that we have to look at Appalachia as something almost separate, because we have very unique things here. We have the squonk, we have the snallygaster, we have all these outlandish animals. But somebody talked about the deer man, or the knot deer, which is one of these tells where it's a creature that looks like a deer, but there's something a little bit off, whether it has, its eyes in the front of its head, like binocular vision, or sometimes it has an elongated body, almost like a shape-shifting thing. And the reason I brought that up is because I actually had a witness tell me a few months ago about encountering one of these things by a cemetery. They were going up over a hill, and the cemetery is in a relatively wooded area, and they were going up over the hill, and what they thought was a deer was passing them by. But they said whenever the deer looked at them, the body just didn't make any sense, because the head was very long. The neck was very long and the body was very elongated. And they said, they were very adamant about this, it looked at them with human eyes. So, if we want to get some creepy things here about Western Pennsylvania and the Appalachian region, we could talk about the knot deer, and the reasons why it's called that is because it looks like a deer, but it's not a deer.
What about your thoughts on skinwalkers and wendigos? Because I don't know if you do this or not.
Yeah.
We actually had an encounter with either one of those last year.
Wow. Tell me about the encounter.
We're sitting on our lawn chair at Flight 21, and maybe 15, 20 feet to my right, something just goes whoosh right through the trees. Not down low, but up high, like a bird whooshing through the trees. And that's what I think it probably was, because I like to keep a little bit of sanity when I'm out in the field. You know what I'm saying? But it was enough to set the chipmunks and the squirrels off. And if you know anything about the forest, things are around, big things are around when the chipmunks and squirrels start sounding their alarm, their nature's security alarm. And so I jumped out of my chair when this happened because it kind of startled me. I'm looking all around. I'm like, what the heck could that have been? And then way off in the distance. So if we're at high noon, if you go down maybe 100 yards to 4 o'clock, start hearing this woman's voice. Help me. Over here.
Oh.
Help me. And it continued on like that. And then, so my research partner, Tim, and I look at him, and I'm like, that's not human. That is not human at all. We are not going over there. And he's like, oh, I agree. We're not going to go over there. I'm like, this is some David Paulides missing 411 stuff right here. Right. And so we tried to move down the trail a little bit to our right in order to try and just, like, we weren't going far. We only went maybe 60 feet. And we were trying to get closer to that voice so we could record it. And then it moved from 4 o'clock to 3 o'clock, be like parallel with us. And it was still help me over here. And it was all monotone, right? Like there was no, you watch these AI videos of skinwalkers and you hear these people belting out bloody murder. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
And it's not like that. And then it changed to a man's voice. Yeah. So the lady's voice goes, help me. I love you. I'm over here. And then a minute or two later, it paused, and then it changed to a man's voice. Help us. We're over here. Can you help us?
Yeah.
I'll tell you, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks to you. Now I'll have to sleep with a nightlight on tonight. So I appreciate that. That is bizarre. I have heard disembodied voices before, always female voices. So that's also a common trait. It's called the whispers here in the Appalachian region, and people have heard it, and I've heard it. I've never been able to really make out. The only time I was ever able to make out what it was saying was one time, and that's when it called my name. It just said Ron. But I've heard women talking before, moving through the woods. The cadence of getting louder and louder as they got close. But we ran because there's no way I'm going to figure out what's going on with that. And yeah, just overwhelming, a cacophony of female whispers all at the same time. Again, what are we supposed to make of that? What is that? That doesn't fit the realm of Bigfoot, and doesn't really fit the realm of hauntings either. It's almost as if there's another kind of, intelligence within the environment itself when we talk about this stuff. I mean, there's something else going on there.
I would agree with you. Ron, it's hard to believe our 2 hours is up.
It is. It is.
Where did that go
thank
again? You make it happen so fast.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Like I said, you have the best audience in the entire world. I love you, Dave. I'm glad that you invited me on. I feel quite honored. And, let's do this again soon.
Absolutely, my friend. Tell everybody where they can find your website, your books, and social media.
Yeah, so ron-cryptoguru.com. You can find my books there. You have a link to my email address. You can contact me on there, or you can go to Amazon, Ronald L. Murphy Jr. Find my books there, and and we're just email me if you want to debate about something, or if you have another theory. I would love to hear from you because that's how we learn.
Guru, thank you so much for coming back on Spaced Out Radio. You are one of the best, and I appreciate every time we get to share the airwaves, my friend, because you deserve it. You are so eloquent, and I encourage all of our listeners to go get the Guru's books on Amazon under Ronald L. Murphy Jr. We call him the Crypto Guru around these parts. Coming up next on Spaced Out Radio, we are going to go to Swamp Dweller. Then extra small Lee Strauss is going to be here for the Q&A. Be ready, everybody. Spaced Out Radio returns right after this.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, my friend. I hope you find your bed very soon.
Oh, I will.
Yeah, I'm going to head on. My kids have a fishing tournament tomorrow, so
Good.
I will let you know what happens after.
Please do. And we lost Guru before he even did anything. All right. Well, let's go here.
Stop now! You're under arrest! Hands up! Don't move!
Don't get caught without your Spaced Out Radio merchandise. We have t-shirts, mugs, hoodies, socks, hats, stickers, and so much more. Whatever you're looking for, we have you covered. Why just be a fan of the paranormal when you can look the part? We don't have ugly merch, folks. Check out the Spaced Out Radio store. Find the link in the description below.
Dirty filth. Dirty filth. Dirty filth.
Object is heading north 045 degrees. It's definitely not a plane. It seems to be tethered to something. Is that a banner, Joe? Caribou Con. Does anyone know what Caribou Con is?
Caribou Con, one of the BC Caribou region's best-kept secrets. Until now. Join our panel of renowned paranormal experts for a weekend of fun and intriguing presentations. Go to cariboucon.com to book or inquire now. Discover Spaced Out Radio on all your favorite platforms. We're live every single night with the best in UFOs, cryptids, paranormal, and the unexplained. And you can find us on all your favorite platforms. Head over to Instagram for behind the scenes and daily weirdness, TikTok for quick mind-bending clips, Facebook for community discussions, and X for real-time updates and hot takes. Wherever you scroll, Spaced Out Radio is there. So go search Spaced Out Radio on every platform, hit follow, and turn on notifications so you never miss a single episode. The weird is waiting. See you there.
The McNeil House is one of several buildings at the 108-mile heritage site said to be haunted by spirits of a time long forgotten. But would you stay the night? Along with guided ghost tours and paranormal investigations, Haunted 108 is offering a chance to spend the entire night inside the historic McNeil House by booking one of our B&B style sleepovers, where you can experience the hauntings firsthand, meet the resident ghost cat, and witness unusual activity. If you dare to turn history into a night you'll never forget, book your spot now at haunted108.com. Spots are limited. Will you be brave enough?
All right, we got extra small Lee Strauss hanging out with us tonight. I almost canceled hour number 3, dude.
Oh boy,
you're
done, huh?
I am so. It is rare, dude, that I am this tired. I am exhausted. But we're gonna trudge through.
All right,
we got a great audience here tonight, and they deserve a good show.
Well, let's give them a good show.
Yeah. Pam Harris is our lone super chatter for tonight. Thank you very much. We're 3 thumbs up away from hitting our goal of 100 as we do each night. So please, please hit that thumbs up. Here we go. We have the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio now underway. My name is Dave Scott. We always appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network, our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. It is, what do we got here, Clam? It is Maleficestation. Maleficestation is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp. To start this off, I should say I'm not the best storyteller. I've heard a lot of stories on here, and most people write these way better than I probably will. So just bear with me. I'm also going to change the names of everyone involved for privacy reasons. I thought about sending this story in for a while, but every time I start to type it out, I end up deleting it because part of me still thinks that maybe there's a normal explanation for what happened, and we just didn't figure it out. The thing that keeps bothering me, though, is that 4 of us were there, and we all remember the same parts. This happened during the summer of 2025. I live near the Appalachian Mountains in the northwest corner of North Carolina, And if you've ever been out there, you know how huge the forests are. There are miles upon miles of woods with old logging roads, dirt trails, and random clearings where people sometimes camp. You can go a long time without seeing another person. I've always liked exploring places like that, even though it's probably not the smartest idea. A few friends asked if I wanted to go on a camping trip for about 6 days somewhere deep in the mountains, a lot deeper than we normally would go. I didn't really have anything planned that week, so I said yes pretty quickly. Looking back, I kind of wished I had thought about it more before agreeing. The day we left, I packed clothes, my tent, sleeping bag, and basic camping stuff. The plan was to meet at a clearing one of my friends had found online. It was about a 45-minute drive from where I lived. The other 3 had already left earlier that afternoon, so I was the last one heading out. While I was driving, we were on a FaceTime, and they asked if I could stop somewhere and grab food for the trip. So I stopped at a small grocery store and picked up some hot dogs, some potatoes, chips, marshmallows, and some other stuff we could cook over the fire. When I walked back out to my car, the sky had turned that interesting orange color it gets right before the sun sets behind in the mountains. My 3 friends I was meeting were people I have known for many years. I called the first one Jake. He was the one who helped plan the trip and was always finding weird trails or camping spots online. The second friend I'll call Liam. He loved camping, but wasn't really the exploring abandoned or remote places type. And the third friend I'd call Marcus. Marcus was usually the one who brought the alcohol on trips and convinced people to do dumb things. Eventually, the paved road turned into gravel, then to a narrow dirt road through the trees. Around that time, my phone lost signal, which didn't surprise me because that happens all the time out here. By the time I got to the clearing, it was almost dark. Jake's truck and Liam's car were parked near the tree line, and Marcus had already started a fire. Everything felt normal at first. We set up tents, cooked some food, and sat around the fire talking for hours. Jake and Marcus decided they were just going to sleep by the fire, and Liam and I set up our tents just a little bit further away. The first 2 days of the trip were honestly normal. We explored some old trails during the day and hung out around the campsite at night. The woods were quiet, but in a normal type of way. You could hear crickets and wind in the trees, and sometimes animals somewhere far off in the distance. Night 3 is when things started to feel strange. We were sitting around the fire, again when Liam suddenly stopped talking and said he heard something in the trees behind us. Jake grabbed a flashlight and shone it over there. After a few seconds, the light landed on what looked like a deer standing between 2 trees, maybe 40 feet away or so, give or take. The weird thing was it wasn't moving. It was just standing there, staring at us. Most deer run as soon as they see people, but this one didn't react at all. The longer we looked at it, the more uncomfortable it felt. It looked really thin, and its head was just tilted slightly to the side, as if it were studying us. Around that time, I started noticing a smell in the air. At first it was faint, but it kept getting stronger. It smelled rotten, like something dead somewhere nearby. The heavy sour smell that sticks in your nose. The smell seemed to be coming from the direction of the trees where the deer was standing. And after a moment, the deer stepped sideways, but the way it moved looked stiff and awkward. Then it turned and walked back into the woods. Not long after that, the smell slowly faded. Nobody talked much after that, and eventually we all tried to go to sleep. Sometime later in the night, I woke up to the sound of leaves crunching outside of my tent. At first, I thought it was one of the guys walking around the campsite, but then I heard a voice quietly saying my name and telling me to come here. It sounded like Jake. I almost answered, but something about the way the voice sounded just felt wrong. The tone was flat and strange. I unzipped my tent a little and looked out toward the fire and saw Jake and Marcus still asleep where they had been earlier. Just a few seconds later, I heard footsteps moving through the campsite. They slowly circled my tent and then stopped right next to it. Through the tent fabric, I could hear breathing, and it was ridiculously close to me. Then that same rotting smell came back, way stronger this time. It smelled like something dead was standing right outside the tent. After a moment or two, the footsteps started moving again. I heard them across the campsite toward Liam's tent, then eventually head back toward the trees. After that, everything went back to being quiet, but I didn't sleep the rest of that night. When the sun started coming up, I got out of my tent and Jake was already awake. I asked him if he had been walking around during the night, and he looked confused and said no. Liam came out of his tent a few minutes later, looking pale, and immediately asked Marcus if he had been outside, calling for him during the night. Marcus was still asleep. Jake found footprints near the edge of the clearing, and they looked almost human, but not quite. They were long and narrow, and the toes were pressed deeper into the dirt than the heels, as if whatever had made them was walking strangely. The tracks went from the woods, circled around every one of our tents, and then straight back into the forest. We packed up that same morning and left the campsite days earlier than we had planned.
Thank you, Swampy, for a great story. If you want more just like that, head on over to YouTube, type in Swamp Dweller, hit subscribe, ring that bell. Thousands of stories for you to listen to each and every night, so make sure you check it on out. From the swamp to the stars, time for extra small Lee Strauss coming in for the Q&A.
They call him extra small, but he's big where it counts. Chasing Bigfoot through the woods on wild accounts. Talking ghosts in the dark, UFOs in the sky. Aliens laughing while they're cruising by. Yeah, Lee Strauss is out there. Hear that cosmic call? He's the legend of Element 115. Here on Spaced Out Radio's Q&A.
All right, extra small Lee Strauss. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show, my friend. How are you?
We are great, Dave. We are good. You know, we may be tired, but we're going to trudge through this, and it's going to be fantastic.
It's always good. You know why? Because we have the best audience ever.
Absolutely.
Ever. I'm
Ever
glad
in the
you're here with
history
us.
of radio. Yep.
Well, the one story that we can't seem to shake, I wanted to get your opinion on, is the missing scientists. This story is all over the mark here, and it seems like they are looking harder and harder trying to find who, what, where, when, why, and how on these, including the latest news, which is finding 7 Chinese scientists that have been involved in the UFO study over there seem to have found the same type of fate, Lee.
I had no idea about the Chinese scientists at all.
Weird.
Well, maybe there's a group out there, you know, maybe it's not just the US taking out our own people or the Chinese taking out our own people. Maybe it's a global group that wants to keep this hidden. Maybe we're barking up the wrong tree at the whole time. You know, and as far as that research is going now that people see that track and the evidence of these missing scientists, people are digging into this a lot more. I remember there was a car crash years ago. It's probably been 5 or 6 years ago. And this guy was all about free energy, right? And he died and perished in the crash, and his car actually almost, you know, when it hit the tree or whatever, he lost control and it hit the tree and it split in two. And of course he was deceased at the scene, but it was very it was widespread on the news and that sort of thing. And I wonder if, you know, these things aren't done on purpose, you know, because vehicles can be hacked, right? Nowadays, newer vehicles can be hacked and, you know, they can be taken control of. And that was one of the thoughts. That was one of the ideas that people had during that time. And so you wonder how deep this goes and how widespread it is. Is there a subset of governments, I should say, that are doing these things?
It just seems to get weirder and weirder where, you know, this story, if you think about it, and I was saying this on WPHT with Gary Arnell earlier, this story would have been a non-story 4, 5, 6 years ago before the media really jumped on the UFO bandwagon once, you know, on the early stages when Marco Rubio and Kirsten Gillibrand and Schumer and Rounds all decided to get together to try and bring this story to light that UFOs/UAP are real. We have different technologies, and that's where it really seemed to happen for this story to take off. But these scientists going missing 5-6 years ago wouldn't have been a story at all. Yet here we are, and it's front page news, Lee.
Yeah, well, just remember, it's not just about the deaths and people missing that we've got going on here. It's also about people being silenced, right? And being told to not talk about their experiences. And this has gone way back, to the first sighting of the Men in Black, here in Washington State. So, the Men in Black. So maybe that is where we need to be thinking about, or what we need to be thinking about. Maybe this is still the Men in Black doing this. And I wonder, is it possible that they could be tied in to the Vatican somehow? Because, Catholics are worldwide. Is there a subset of Catholics or some group that is still running operations trying to keep this stuff hidden? And it's knowledge that we have that maybe we've lost. And the fear is that we could gain that knowledge back. And if we do gain that knowledge back, then their grip on society might be, loosened up, to put it bluntly, or not bluntly.
And I've wondered that, but I think you bring up a good point. I've wondered that as well, whether or not there is some sort of Manchurian candidate, Jason Bourne type of person that has been, put on the mission of taking some of these people out. Because one of the things that they have in common, all of these people that have disappeared, gone missing, have taken their own lives, who have, been taken out by other people, they all have UFOs in common. Now, I don't think that there are people on that list that shouldn't be there, or I do think they shouldn't be there. There's a couple of them. One person was killed by a relative. Okay, another person offed themselves. I don't believe they should be on that list. However, we cannot say, even if you remove 2 from that list, how the pattern continues. And usually when there's smoke, there's fire. I mean, let's go back to February 27th, when retired Major General of the United States Air Force, Neil McCaslin, just vanished. You're telling me that there is not one Ring camera, or that there is not one security camera on the houses in his neighborhood that caught him leaving? You're telling me he just, disappeared like a fart in the wind, to quote a line from Shawshank Redemption? I don't know, Lee. There has to be more clues than what we know.
Everybody carries their cell phone with them. I don't care if you're going to the mailbox. That cell phone goes with you. I that's the way I am. So I don't leave things behind like this. If I got a text, or if I got a call or something, my 2-minute trip to the mailbox, I'm going to have this there just in case I miss something. I don't want to miss, what I mean? So it's always with me. I can't, hearing the story about at least 2 or 3 of them leaving their cell phone or wallet behind when they've gone out. And then, another couple just happened to take a pointy stick with them when they left the house. I mean, it's odd stuff. It's just odd. It doesn't make any sense. It's almost as if somebody caught them off guard when they weren't expecting it, and interrupted whatever they were doing, and got them, out, either, at, I don't want to say that word, but like put a pointy stick at them and said, "You're going, and let's go," So something happened. And I think, as far as this trend goes, it's going to continue. I think we're going to find more and more. You're going to probably find this happening in Russia as well, and many other countries where people are just end up disappearing that are tied to this subject.
Do you think this is happening because they were going to try and testify? Or do you think this is happening because there are a number of people out there in high profile positions within the government who really are tired of this story being what it is, and that they really just want to shut this topic up and sweep it back under the rug?
It sounds and it feels like it's a continuing program that's been around for quite a while to me. Maybe the last 60, 70 years, if we really start digging into it. I think this is just a continuation of a program that's been in place. I don't necessarily think it's just because these people are coming out and testifying. If it's happened in China, I mean, that gives us a glimpse into they're not testifying in China. So whatever this is, it's more of a global thing. And that, I mean, your mind can go just about anywhere with that. It's obviously a very large conspiracy situation to get rid of these people that know more maybe than they should. Okay. Now, how many, we know this has happened with scientists that may be in the public eye or have, their government's attention. But what about the small folks like yourself and I who have seen things and, may have talked about it here and there and then are disappeared? Has there been any of that? I would imagine there has been. But because their name isn't in lights and because they're part of the public, maybe that stuff has, been less noticeable.
Could very well be. Could very well be. But the mystery will continue as we have about 3 minutes to go before we go to break. At the bottom of the hour, Lee Strauss is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. And Lee, one of the big things coming out of this really is the fact that it's hit Congress. It's gone right up to the president of the United States. They seem to want to know what is going on. And here's the thing. Government officials do not, contrary to belief, they do not get riled up because the public is riled up. They get riled up because when they ask a question that is caused by the public, when they hear the answer, the real answer, behind the scenes, off camera, away from microphones, that's what gets them riled up. And I think that somebody has mentioned something about this. Not that just this is happening, but maybe they've been told why it's happening and just can't release it yet. What do you think of that theory?
I think it's very possible. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that we aren't privy to. So it's very possible that a lot of people are under NDAs and can't talk about the things that they know. We know that's true. So yeah, it's going to be in that bucket for sure.
Do you think then that there will come a time when we do find out the answers to this?
I think we may get clues to who's doing it just by researching the people that have been missing or have been taken or, have done something to themselves. I think we just need to keep on track and keep investigating, and we'll figure something out.
Well, if we could go by Courtney Marcassani, who's a regular on this show, she will also be speaking at CaribouCon as well. Since the 40s, there's over 60 that have mysteriously died, vanished, disappeared, unalived themselves. It does seem to hit that world that there is something else going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's, like I said, it's tied to the Men in Black somehow. I think we need to look there.
Okay, tell me why you think it's tied to the Men in Black.
Well, I don't know if we have time for this, but you know, Murray Island was the first sighting. Because of Murray Island, there was a sighting of the Men in Black, and they came to talk to the people that were involved in that situation. And they picked up the debris off the beach, put it on a plane, and that plane crashed in the Cascade Mountains. Okay. Why? I mean, the plane crashed with the debris. So that there's a whole thing there that makes me think this is more nefarious than just, you know, the US government. I think there's something bigger involved, some kind of group that we don't understand, or we may have hints of, but we don't know for sure.
Well, we're going to get you to hold on right there because we
Mhm.
are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. We have extra small Lee Strauss for another 30 minutes on Spaced Out Radio. Then we will be right back for the final.
This is Spaced Out Radio. Your host, Dave Scott.
I'm just going to get up and go for a walk. Do you want to go in the green room or do you want to just hang out here?
I'll go in the green room if you're going to get up.
All right. Be right back, everybody. right. 1 sec, extra small. Dude, I am so tired.
I'm so sorry, buddy. Is that hat say tinfoil on it?
It does.
Love it.
My daughter got this for me from a guy who makes them down in the Lower Mainland.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. All right, we got about 30 seconds. Thank you, Benno and Pam, for the super chats. We greatly appreciate it. And we're going to get going here in about 20 seconds. I'm going to be ending the feed right as soon as we're done the show because I am just so exhausted and I just need to get to bed. This is rare for me, people. Rare for me. So here we go. All right, here comes the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. We're going to get to our good friend Lee Strauss right here on the show as we continue with the Q&A. How you doing, Lee?
Doing good, buddy. I wish you were as awake as I am right now.
I am so awake, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. You know, that's how it goes around here, my man. That's how it goes around here. So, my big question to you right now regarding the, in the last half hour, we were talking about the missing scientists, but we also have not seen the release of the 46 videos that were supposed to come out a week and a half ago. Now, Anna Paulina Luna, who has been pushing for these videos, has been going very hard charged on Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, but that conversation seems to have died down for right now. Are you surprised by that?
I'm not surprised at all. I mean, they put these dates forward. I need to see this by then, but the reality is they're probably coming back and saying the dog ate my homework. They're giving all kinds of excuses, right? That's just the way this subject is. And it's funny. It seems like right now that's been happening a lot. It seems like we're pushing for, we want evidence of this. We want evidence of this. We want to see these documents, blah, 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 blah. And we are not getting the information we should. It seems like we're being foiled at every turn for so many things that we want to know about. And that goes deeper. I think that whole, there's something going on to where the government, the deeper part of the government, is pushing back on everything that we want to know about, whether it be the Epstein files or whatever it is. And I don't know that there's ever been a president like Trump who has gone after so much information and wanted so much information about, many different things, and it just hasn't been released. Look at the JFK files. It's like, we want this information about the JFK files as well. And that stuff the information we want has not been released and it's held back. I believe that, our government has been doing nefarious things for so long that this is just their MO. We don't have a right to know.
I think you hit the nail on the head right there because, whether you love or hate Trump is irrelevant. But the one thing that I will say about him when we talk about our subjects, he's used to getting what he wants. He's not used to people saying no. And it doesn't matter whether it's the JFK files or UFOs or whatever it may be. He is somebody who just does what he wants. Okay. And when you see these people giving pushback on this or not hitting their target dates, it makes him look bad. It makes him look weak. But I think on a different sense, instead of looking at the president, whoever it may be, in this case, it's Trump. Okay. When it comes to this subject of UFOs, it really shows how little power in certain situations the president truly has. And it really drives home, especially with these videos not being released on time and now overdue by a week and a half. It really shows that maybe the president in certain situations does not have the authority, whatever the situation is, does not have the authority to actually get them released fully. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I just think there has been this, I don't know if it's a CIA or part of the FBI or whatever it is, but I've heard it so many times that even the president does not have the need to know, this information. So, just because he comes out and says, well, these documents need to be out, I need to have them on my desk, I need to, or whatever. But this is, and maybe it goes all the way back to FDR, and his what would you say? His hiding, wanting to hide the certain parts of the government and block them off from the public, and then also from any other presidents in the future. I mean, there must have been some kind of deal was done. And now there's this group back out there, it was just able to keep things hidden. And it's not, from the American people. The thing is that we pay their salaries. That's, our taxes pay their salaries. So why the heck is this stuff being kept from us? It's so flipping frustrating. And it happens time and time and time again.
But that's part of the issue that we see, Lee. And it doesn't matter whether it's, these files or military bases. You as a citizen, okay, just can't call up the Air Force and say, hey, I paid $32,000 in taxes this year. I would like to have a flight in the back seat of an F-16 or an F-15. That's my tax dollars at work. They're going to look at you and they're going to say, screw you. That's not how this works. Okay. No, there are buildings in the United States that you can't enter, or certain buildings that you can maybe enter the front door and go in the lobby, but you're not going to get to go walking down the hallways because you don't have the clearance as a citizen. It's like that in every democratic country, right? We don't, we can sit there and say, hey, I pay for this every month. Every day I am paying a little bit towards this. This is mine as well as my fellow citizens, not yours, yet you're holding back from me. I understand that argument, but to many, they'll say, well, that's just not the way the system is designed.
Right. I mean, we give them certain latitude to protect us, right? And they can put it under that banner. But at a certain point, they're not helping us, they're helping themselves with our money. At a certain point, us as the collective, should have this information. Obviously, they need to keep some things hidden because, I'm sorry, I'm losing my thoughts today big time, but they need to hold certain things back, Dave. I understand that, just so that, in case of war, we have certain secrets and that we need to keep hidden away and stashed away, and so that we can stay on top of our game. But there are certain things like this that are not necessarily hindrance to us, right? If we know that the ET is here, it's not a hindrance. It's more about them keeping power, even over us, even over other countries, and that sort of thing. They want to keep the power that they have, and of course, keeping that information from us gives them more power. Whatever that information is, and it doesn't have to just be on UFOs.
So when do you see that 46 video file come out? When do you see that happening?
I think as long as we've been looking at this stuff, videos have trickled out, and it's always been kind of on the sidelines. Somebody was able to get a video out, and then it's on YouTube. And I think that's the way the videos will come out. I don't think we're going to see a big dump of 46 videos. I don't think that's going to happen. It's going to be this, somebody's going to release it somehow through proxy or whatever, and it's going to come out that way.
I see it pretty much being the same way. I think they're going to say, look, we can't give you all 46, but here's 2.
Mm-hmm.
And they are going to be grainy. They are going to be salty. They're going to be peppery. They're going to look like they come off of a 1960s black and white television that has rabbit ears for the signal.
Yep.
It's not going to be anything clear like I'm looking at you on camera right now. Definitely will not be in color.
No, I don't imagine. I don't think we're going to get that kind of a smoking gun. They won't do it. And that's part of their control. They're basically, what they're doing, Dave, is they're showing us that they have control over these subjects. And they're saying, listen, we've got control no matter who says what or whatever. Obviously the group that's keeping this behind the curtain, it's not just one person. It's an entire group of people, like the aviary or something like that, right? That has been instructed, from previous presidents and Congress and other things, just to keep this secret. Who was it that said, fear the, don't trust, or fear the, military industrial complex? And I think that's who's really ruling the roost. Our president is just a figurehead.
I would say that there is extreme merit to that. Now, Tim Burchett has been very loud recently in the last few days about how he has seen things, and he believes these are extraterrestrial. He said he's seen videos of craft that are doing some extraordinary things in the sky, whether it's hovering or flying in the air or underwater at hundreds of miles an hour, faster than any torpedo has ever been tested. This is really, really extraordinary, because the way he's speaking, we've never heard a politician speak like that before on the UFO subject. But on the flip side, that's all he can say is, I have seen this, and we have to play the trust me bro card on this. What do you think about that?
I mean, that's all they got, really, is that card to play. Until that stuff has come out, it's all, either hearsay or it's somebody said that I saw a video. It's frustrating, of course, because we've all been sitting on the edge of our seat for the last 2 years on this subject, or 3 years, saying, knowing or hearing that it's going to come out, it's going to come out, it's going to come out. And we're all sitting at the edge of our seat waiting for something. And yes, it feels like we are trying to trudge through deep snow to get to our goal, and our goal keeps moving farther and farther away from us, and it's showing us that we really don't have the power that we thought we did, or we um, are losing the ability to know what our government is doing. We've lost that ability basically, and there's maybe it was different 70, 80 years ago, but it's sure changed. And
Yeah, I don't think it's changed for the better, Lee. I really don't think
Yeah.
it's changed for the better at all. When you look at it, it's great to have him having a voice on what is going on. And it's great that he is, fighting the good fight, as they say, for the people, the commoners like you and I, who have an interest in this subject. But at some point, you can't keep writing, these verbal checks that can't be cashed. And at some point, the UFO community is going to turn on Tim Burchett and say, where's your evidence? You say you've seen all of this information, whether it's videos or photographs. When do we get to see it? When do we get to play in the cool kids pool rather than having to swim with the commoners? Right?
Well, it's people like the people here that are listening to the show, and you and I, that know that the reality of things. And it's so frustrating to have someone tell us that we're not seeing what we're seeing, that what we're seeing isn't real, is fake, or is UAP instead of a UFO. It is beyond frustration for us. Those that have seen things and believe things and know in their hearts that it's real. How can a government, how can even look at your parents? Okay, when you were a kid, the Easter Bunny and all of that stuff was real, but eventually you found out that it's not. Okay, but when you believe something so heartedly, and then you find out that it's a lie, it's kind of crushing, right? But if you have seen something and know that it's real, and then somebody's telling you that doesn't exist, or that's something mechanical, it's something that of the governments or whatever, and that's probably why they changed it to, from UFO to UAP, is just to try to trick people and tell them what they're seeing isn't real, which is just it seems like we're getting betrayed all over again, like when we were when we were kids. You know what I mean? It's this betrayal, but it's much worse because we're intelligent grown-ups. So how the hell do you deal with lies again and again and again coming from the government?
You can't. They're too big, and the military industrial complex has way too much authority on this.
Yeah. I don't know where we go from here. We just have to try to keep our fingers crossed and keep, trudging through this deep snow to get to our goal, even though it keeps moving back farther away. I don't see any other way to go on this. We have to go through these circles. We have to go through there's no other way that we're going to get mass disclosure. It's going to have to come through the government, or we're going to have to rely on ET to do it. And I don't know that that'll ever happen.
I don't know if it'll ever happen either, as we got about 3.5 minutes to go before we have to say goodnight to everybody. But in the end, Eric Burleson, Tim Burchett, Nancy Mace, and Anna Polina Luna still seem very hot to trot on this subject, that they feel there is something there that really, really needs to be brought out. At what point does their frustration finally maybe push an end to this? Do you think we're right in the hype of it all right now? Or do you think we're getting closer to them saying, look, this is never going to go anywhere?
I think the frustration level from them may culminate in to a situation where you may just have people coming out with the information on their own and saying, screw it, I'm done. I'm done dealing with it. Here's the 46 videos. You know, I had access to them and I got them out to people and done. And, you know, if that ruins their career, that ruins their career. But at some point, somebody's going to flip the switch, I believe in, and get frustrated enough to do something.
I really hope that they can keep it going. I really do hope that they can keep it going. Whether or not they're able to is another story, because we're not still sure whether or not they are going to be able to actually get those answers out. Like Luna recently said, J.D. Vance, the vice president's statement that extraterrestrials could be demons was his personal opinion, and noted that some interpretations of UFOs frame the phenomena as interdimensional or aligned with religious perspectives. I mean, the topic right now with the government is all over the place. It's not new to us. We've been here and done that. But when you're talking about this to the world, that's where it kind of gets to the point where they're like, oh, well, maybe, just maybe we're dealing with things that we don't really know about.
Or we really don't want to talk about. His opinion on UFOs from the first time he came out and talked about it to now has shifted, has changed. He never said anything about, demons and that sort of thing before. All of a sudden now that he came out recently and said, well, maybe it's demons. I mean, where did that come from? He was talking about Star Trek and how much he loved that stuff when he was younger, and actually did believe in UFOs, and now that it's kind of shifted what he's saying.
It's always shifting. Lee, we got 20 seconds left with you tonight. Always a pleasure to share the airwaves with you, my friend. You make it so darn good.
Well, I thank you, Dave. I appreciate your time.
It is always nice, my friend. Always nice. As we say good night to Lee Strauss. And hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. Rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on X, hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and Bigfoot Broadcasting Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night, everybody. 1 second, Lee. All right. To the rest of you, I want to say thank you for a great week here on the show. It's been a lot of fun. I apologize for cutting this stream off, but I'm editing this show tomorrow. So
Well, I guess it's a good time for it to freeze up. Good night.